happening? Happy hump day to all of you. Thanks for joining me as always. Everything Pats, a New England Patriots podcast. We have to get into Will Campbell, the early challenges that Campbell will face during his rookie season. We also want to get to the mailbag, but first, a quick note before getting into all of that. Burt Breer posted earlier today that the Patriots are promoting national scout Tony Kinkella to director of college scouting, replacing Cam Williams. Williams, of course, went to Denver. Kinkella was hired from Tampa 3 years ago. So New England now has new directors on the pro, A.J. Highsmith, and college sides. I obviously don't have a bunch of information on Tony Kinkella and what he has done since he's joined the Patriots front office. What I will say is three things. Number one, continuity with the staff. It's important. And if you have somebody on the staff that you believe in, that you want to promote, then you should do that. So I like the continuity with this current staff. Secondly, the fact that Kinkella worked with Jason Light is never a bad thing. Jason Light, formerly of the Patriots front office, he's been down in Tampa for a long time now. He is regarded as one of the best GMs in football. So anybody who works under Jason Light, I believe, has potential. Thirdly, Kinkella doesn't move around a lot, which you can look at that two ways. You can say he doesn't move around a lot because teams are not necessarily interested in him. They don't want to promote him from what he's doing in Tampa. Or you can look at it as he was comfortable in Tampa. He spent 13 years there, and he was able to survive multiple regimes. And that usually means people trust your word. They believe in your evaluations. So the Patriots, they have a new top man on the college side, director of college scouting, and that is Tony Kinkella. All right, let's get to Will Campbell, Patriots' first pick in this past draft at number 4. All eyes are on Will Campbell. He doesn't have to be spectacular. I'm not expecting Campbell to be spectacular. If he is, that's great, but I don't think myself or you are expecting him to be elite at that position, especially in year number 1. I want to see Campbell show us that he can be at least an average to above average left tackle at some point during the season. I expect that point, if we get there, will be later in the season than early in the season. And we always have to keep this in mind when we discuss Will Campbell. He's very young. Burt Breer wrote about this going back a couple of months ago, and here's what he wrote. Campbell turned 21 in January, and this is actually relevant, more so with the big men than anyone else. It means, in a nutshell, there could still be some growth coming. Physical maturity is vital in a grown man's NFL, and some linemen are still getting there as they come into the pros. It's why there are times where guys struggle a little bit early on and come on a few years into their careers as they continue to fill out and build up their functional football strength. This is not to excuse Will Campbell if he has some early struggles, but we have to keep things in perspective. We have to realize that the man just turned 21 years old, and there might be some challenges from a strength standpoint, depending on matchup, early in his NFL career. Got to wait to get that grown man strength. Now, Campbell might have that grown man strength already, but it's something to keep in mind when we discuss how he plays throughout his first season. Now, most reports on Campbell regarding what he's looked like at OTAs, and the media has been to 3 OTA practices. Overall, from what I have read, heard, watched, overall, Campbell has done fine. I don't think he's been exceptional. I don't think people have written that he's been great. But I recorded a podcast this week with my buddy Greg Bedard, and Greg said that he didn't notice him during Monday's OTA practice. That might sound like a bad thing, but it's actually not a bad thing. When you don't notice the left tackle, that means the left tackle is likely doing his job. So by all accounts, Campbell has been fine. He's gotten beaten a couple of times, but he's been fine. And I think that's noteworthy because of the OTA challenge that he's facing. We're going to get into the first month of this season and what Will Campbell will be looking at across from him and all of the challenges that will come with those players. But I first want to start with Keion White, because Keion White is very challenging for Campbell. You're talking about elite athleticism, and you're talking about good length. So for Campbell to rep against Keion White consistently during camp season is important and should help him develop. We also have to remember that at these OTAs, a number of times, the offense has been held down, so to speak. And it's been held down because they've been working on their passing offense. They've been doing a lot of work on passing downs, which means the defense understands that. They pin their ears back. They go after the quarterback. They do different things. And for Campbell and the rest of the offensive line, that is a tremendous challenge. So not only is Keion White a good challenge for Campbell, the situational football that you work on is also going to be a good challenge for Will Campbell. But let's move on from Keion White because it's not going to get easier. You have joint practices with the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota Vikings have Jonathan Grenard at defensive end. He's really good. And not only is he really good, he's got length. 34 7/8 inches is the arm length for Grenard. So at joint practices, get ready. When the Patriots are having their joint practice against the Vikings, and maybe they have multiple joint practices, Will Campbell is going to have immediately a challenge in front of him with Grenard. And I would not be surprised if Grenard gets the best of Campbell at least a couple of times. So prepare yourself. That Vikings joint practice, we might hear about Will Campbell having trouble from time to time against Grenard. Then you get into the preseason, and I don't know how much these guys are going to play during the preseason. I don't know if Vrabel is going to play Will Campbell the majority of the snaps in the first quarter of these games. I don't know if he's going to play any of the starters in these games. So I'm not sure. But in the preseason, you've got to go against the Giants. We all know who the Giants just drafted. Abdul Carter, no joke. Kayvon Thibodeau, another edge player who was a high draft pick, who has talent. He hasn't fulfilled the potential, but he certainly has talent. So you've got to deal with those two guys. You also have to deal with Burns if New York decides to play some games, which I think would be unlikely in the preseason. So preseason game against the Giants, tough challenge for Will Campbell. Then we get into the regular season. Week 1, who do you play? You play the Raiders. Now, Malcolm Kuntz is coming back from an ACL. We will see how he looks. Will he be fully back? Will he be on the pup? We're not sure. So we'll see where Kuntz is week 1 of the season. But would you be surprised if the Raiders decided to play some games with Max Crosby? Would you be surprised if the Raiders lined up Crosby across from Campbell and challenged the young rookie? I certainly would not. And if Campbell does have to deal with Max Crosby, at least in part, during that week 1 game, that is a tremendous challenge. Crosby is one of the best defensive linemen in football, one of the best defensive ends. His motor never stops. He plays almost every single snap, and he's going after you almost every single time. So if the Raiders decide to play some games and line up Crosby across from Campbell, that will be a huge challenge. But it doesn't get any easier for Will Campbell in week 2. Because when you look at the schedule, we all know what the Patriots will be doing week 2. They will be heading down to Miami to play the Dolphins. And we start with the personnel of the Dolphins. Bradley Chubb, really good. Chop Robinson, good rookie season a year ago. Tough pass rusher to deal with. So you've got Chubb, you've got Robinson, but you also have to think about going beyond the personnel. You're down in Miami. It's the middle of September. It's going to be hot. So you're going to be dealing with the elements, the heat, the humidity, and you're going to have to face Chubb and Robinson. It's a very difficult task for Will Campbell in week 2. So just imagine that for a minute. You work against Keion White during camp. You get to the joint practices and you're dealing with Grenard with Minnesota. I don't think Dietrich Wise or Ferrell will be too much of a crazy challenge for Campbell during those joint practices against Washington. Preseason, you got to deal with Minnesota, who plays. You got to deal with Washington, who plays. You got to go against the Giants. Maybe they'll throw out Abdul Carter against Campbell to see what Carter's got going before they kick off the season. You got Thibodeau. Then you get to the Raiders. Raiders might battle you with Max Crosby and try to take advantage of the rookie. And then you go down to Miami, dealing with the heat, dealing with Chubb, dealing with Robinson. This is a pretty difficult first few weeks. When you count the joint practices and preseason, a pretty difficult start for Will Campbell when you talk about matchups? Some challenges there. I've got more thoughts. Before I get to those thoughts in the mailbag, don't forget to help us out. Click that thumbs up as you watch. More thumbs up means the algorithm will help us, more eyeballs. So don't forget to like as you watch. Don't forget to comment as well. How do you feel about Will Campbell's start here? How it lines up for him? I think it's going to be challenging. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. And, of course, don't forget to subscribe. Trying to hit 7,000 subscribers. And we continue to push towards that goal. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. My friends at Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, review, follow, all that stuff. All that stuff. And don't forget Locked On Patriots. I'm doing that podcast as well. All right, so then we get to week 3. So you've gone through a pretty tough challenge. You get to week 2, and then we get to week 3. And week 3 doesn't get any easier. Week 3, you've got to play the Steelers. Now, fortunately, you're playing the Steelers at home, so noise is not going to be a problem for you. But we all know about the Steelers. We know about their defense. We know that they will force you to grind it out. We know that they love to get after the quarterback. And we know that they have talent. Alex Highsmith is pretty damn good. That'll be a challenge for Campbell. Much like the Raiders, will the Steelers play games with Watt? And will we see TJ Watt lined up across from Campbell more than we might think? We'll have to wait and see if that's what they do. Jack Sawyer, rookie, pretty good career at Ohio State. So you go from the Raiders and Max Crosby and Kuntz and some of the things they can do. Then you go to Miami to go against Chubb and Robinson, the heat and the humidity. Then you've got to face Pittsburgh with Highsmith, maybe Watt, and Sawyer. And we all know that Pittsburgh, again, just difficult grind. And then you might get a little bit of a breather. Campbell might. He might get a breather in week 4, home game against Carolina. Out of the first 4 matchups, to me, that is the least dangerous. It doesn't mean that it's not dangerous, but Carolina will also be depending on rookies. You've got Princely Umanmielen, and you've got Nick Scorton, 2 rookie pass rushers. Those guys could give Campbell some issues. Umanmielen's a long, good athlete. Scorton is a very good athlete. So it's not as if it's a quote-unquote pass in week 4, but if you look at the schedule and how it stacks up, Campbell's best matchup, I think, is week 4 because he's going against a couple of rookies. But that's a very difficult first month. And a few things about that. By the end of the first month, I believe we will have a great gauge as to where Will Campbell is. His early skill level, how is he transitioning to the league? If we get through the first month of the season and Campbell's played good football, that's a great sign. Because if he gets through Vegas and he gets through Miami in Miami, he gets through Pittsburgh, he finishes it off against Carolina, at the end of that first month, if Campbell played average to above average football, then you feel pretty good about his chances being a starting left tackle and proving that he can continue to play to an average to above average level. So we will have a great gauge as to where he is at the beginning of the season. At the very beginning of the season, first month through, we should have a good idea as to whether or not Campbell's going to be able to handle his business. The first month, because of the challenges, is also good for Josh McDaniels because Josh McDaniels will get a read on whether or not Campbell needs help. And what type of player does Campbell need help against? If Campbell has to face off against Max Crosby, if the Raiders play games and they switch Crosby's side, if that's what they do, and they might not do it, but if that's what they do, and Campbell doesn't lose his tuchus against Crosby, then McDaniels will likely feel pretty confident of not sending extra help consistently to the left side. If Campbell gets his lunch eaten and they have to help him a lot, McDaniels knows moving forward, we're going to have to help the left tackle. And it's not going to be against every matchup. It's not going to be against every type of player. But the first month during camp and then the joint practices, then the preseason if they play, depending on how much they play, then you get through that first month, Josh McDaniels will have a firm grasp as to what Campbell can do, what he can't do, how they can help him, what kind of play calls have given Campbell issues. So all that intel that you're gathering through the first month, it means even more because Campbell won't be going against a bunch of ham and acres. He's going to be going against some pretty good competition. So you gather that intel. You gather the intel and you look at the matchups and you say, all right, now we're through the first month of the season. We've got 13 games left. What do we need to do for those 13 games to make sure that Campbell is at his best? And that first month will help you get there. I would expect, and maybe I end up being wrong, but I would just expect, because it's the most reasonable thought here, I would expect that Campbell would progress through his rookie season because he's only 21 years old and it's his rookie season. So that first month might be a struggle. I think it's on the table where the first month Campbell struggles a little bit given the matchups and it's his first month in the NFL and his age and all that stuff. I would not be surprised if Campbell has some issues through the first month. I would not be surprised if there's some panic about Will Campbell by like week 5. But I would take a deep breath and understand he's 21, he's a rookie, and he should only get better from day one. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll always just not work out, and we'll look back and go, man, what a swing and a miss. But if he shows that he's average to above average in that first month, you should feel really good about his potential of becoming better than maybe what you thought he would be by the end of the season. The more intel, the better. All right, we got to get to the mailbag. I posted late on Twitter. I posted this morning. I forgot to do it yesterday. My fault, but we still got more than a handful of questions that I want to get to. So good stuff from all of those on Twitter. Let's first jump to a super chat from Charlie. Baby faces all around at the top positions. Campbell has got room to succeed and grow. Yeah, we got to remember a lot of young players on this team, man. A lot of young players. And we're seeing it a little bit with the Red Sox. Sometimes young players, they get off to great starts and they slow down like Christian Campbell. Sometimes they get off to slow starts and then end up playing awesome after that very slow start. Sometimes it's just a full season of ups and downs. We do have to acknowledge and appreciate that this is going to be a young team. You're banking on a lot of young players, especially on the offensive side, much more on the offensive side than defensive side. Defensive side, you've got some age and experience. But offensively, Will Campbell at left tackle. Obviously, if Jared Wilson ends up beating out Garrett Bradbury, or you have to go to Wilson eventually at some point during the season, you'll have 2 rookie offensive linemen. Who ends up playing left guard? We'll see how that unfolds. It looks like it's going to be on the older end of the spectrum with, maybe Wes Schweitzer, maybe Cole Strange, but it's early June. We don't know just yet. And then you've got Henderson, you've got Williams, you've got obviously a very young quarterback still. So you have a young offense and you've got a new coordinator who is the old coordinator, but a new coordinator for a lot of these players. So, there's good and bad news to that. You would hope that they will show that potential and they will continue to develop and progress throughout the season. And by the final month and a half, those young guys are now starting to make a push and they're super comfortable with their surroundings and they're clearly NFL players. That's the good side of it. The bad side of it is that you could go through some early struggles because of that youth. And you could kind of fight it the first month and a half until you find your sea legs. Thank you for the 10, Charlie. It is very much appreciated. All right, let's get to the mailbag. Sox Nation 0613. If Drake were to schedule summertime workouts off-site after minicamp, what lineup of players would get you excited the most that Drake is taking time to get extra work in with? Couple people here, I would say. Stephon Diggs. I would like to see Diggs working with Drake Maye after mandatory minicamp. It's the first time that Diggs has played receiver for Maye, obviously. And just the importance of Diggs in this offense, I would like to see him get some work with Maye away from the facility. Kyle Williams, crucial development. Get him going early, establish that relationship. Efton Chisholm, see if they can further develop a relationship. Chisholm is, he got some snaps with Maye on Monday, but is he going to continue to get those snaps? It's going to be difficult. Diggs gets out there, Bourne gets back, Jalen Polk, if he gets healthier, it's going to get more difficult for Chisholm to get those consistent snaps with Maye. So to go away from the facility before you get to training camp and work with Chisholm, work with Williams, that would be important. I would even say Jalen Polk. Can he get himself going? Can he get healthy? Can he try to reestablish things with Drake Maye? All right, this is from After Huddle, at After Huddle. With 12 wide receivers in the room, who's on the outside looking in? Could we see notable faces moved to make room for younger players? I think as far as the category, it's going to be tough to make the football team. Jalen Polk is part of that category. I think it's going to be tough for Polk to make it because of last season. He's dealing with returning from a shoulder injury and surgery, so he has not been out there just yet. So we'll see what he looks like if he gets out there next Monday during mandatory minicamp. Is he back fully healthy by training camp? He's got to get going. There is some inherent pressure on Jalen Polk to get on the field and to start doing some things, because if he has to sit out for a period of time during camp, I think that could be devastating for his chances to make the team. So I think it'll be tough for Jalen Polk. I think it'll be tough for Kayshon Boutte. You've got a mix of dependable guys ahead of him. He is from the old regime, the Belichick regime. Obviously, the conversations about he might get traded during draft weekend. I think it'll be tough for Efton Chisholm to make the team. And I went and dug in a little bit deeper on Efton Chisholm at the Locked On Patriots podcast today, if you want to check that out. But it's not going to be easy for an undrafted free agent to make the team, no matter how good he's looked so far. Javon Baker, it sounds like he is toward the bottom of the depth chart. And, with a lot of people out, Matt Collins not there on Monday, Diggs off to the side, Polk off to the side, Kendrick Bourne was not there on Monday, and Javon Baker was pretty much MIA. So it sounds to me like Baker is closer to the bottom of the depth chart than even the middle of the depth chart. As far as, could we see notable faces move to make room for the younger guys? I think Kendrick Bourne's interesting. I went deeper into the Kendrick Bourne stuff a few weeks ago on Everything Pats. He's interesting because I think, personally, I think Kendrick Bourne stays, and I think he's going to be more pivotal than people believe he's going to be. But I also believe that he could be dealt if someone else shows out. If someone else shows out, I don't think it's crazy to believe that Kendrick Bourne gets traded. But I think it's a much better chance that Bourne makes the team than gets dealt. All right, at Echo on Twitter. What are the chances we can somehow get a message to Drake Maye to wear some knee protection? It's a comfort thing. I know a lot of people get, queasy stomachs when they see the franchise quarterback without knee protection out there and taking hits near the knee area. But it's a comfort thing. And you might argue that wearing protection, wearing some kind of knee brace would actually make Maye act unnaturally. It would cause unnatural movements, and he could end up getting injured because of the knee brace. So is he comfortable with it? If he's not comfortable with it, it's a danger. And he's also going to run. I think he's going to run more this year than he ran last year because McDaniels is going to utilize his legs more than Alex Van Pelt did. And then you get into the whole, sliding and running and sliding with that knee brace on. It could jam you up. It could cause further injury. So, we look at the knee braces and we say, oh, protects the player. It could also create some issues for the player. And if Drake Maye is not comfortable with it, you got to let him do what he's comfortable with. And there's just risk to the game of football. It's a violent game. At Johnny_GN. Expectations for the red zone offense. Last year, the Patriots were 30th in the NFL in red zone offense. And, Johnny mentions some names with, Matt Collins and Maye and, Travion Henderson, better offensive line. Johnny asks if it could be a top 15 red zone offense. I wouldn't write that idea off. I think it's possible the Patriots could certainly be hovering around the middle of the pack with red zone offense. And I'll give you some more reasons why. They'll be much better than last year. Trust me. And some of that is you can't be much worse than you were. When you finish 30th, pretty much only one way that you can go, and that's going to be up. But I do think their red zone offense is going to be much better if they're healthy. And I'll add a few other reasons why. Josh McDaniels versus Alex Van Pelt. McDaniels is the superior play caller versus Van Pelt. Even the people that don't love the idea of McDaniels being here have to admit he is a superior play caller compared to Van Pelt. So just the upgrade at OC should absolutely help this offense in the red zone. I also think, as I mentioned just a few moments ago, I think Drake Maye will run more than he ran last year. And I'm talking specifically about short yardage situations and red zone inside the 5. I believe McDaniels will utilize Maye's athleticism and his running ability in those short yardage situations and inside the 5. You're going to see the option game, that kind of stuff. So I think that will help them get some easy touchdowns. I also expect with McDaniels the use of the fullback or the H-back role. I think you'll see that more. And that usually helps your downhill run game inside the 5. So I think we'll see more of that. And then, I know that Johnny mentioned Drake Maye, but just Drake Maye's expected improvement, you would think the team would be better in the red area with the improved play at quarterback. At Liberty Call 76, what role do you think that Antonio Gibson will have on the team? Is he a fit for a McDaniels-led offense? Yes and no. If you've been watching or listening to this podcast since last year, you know that I am a fan of Antonio Gibson. I loved the signing in real time. I thought it was overlooked. I thought he could have an impact, and I would say he did have an impact. I was frustrated at times that Van Pelt seemingly didn't keep going to Gibson when he had it, moving for him and had some kind of rhythm and momentum going. That was a little frustrating to me. But when you look at Gibson, he's a good football player. Now, saying all of that, I do question if he's going to end up making this roster. I think he does. I have him on my roster right now. Can any of the UDFAs pop up and overshadow Gibson? Not from what I have read so far. So I have Gibson on the roster right now. And if he is on the roster, I think he's going to be an early down substitute back, first and second down, when Ramondre needs a little bit of a breather. I think you could, possibly use him in 2 running back sets, like the pony formation. I think McDaniels will absolutely utilize Gibson's receiving skills. He played receiver at college or in college. So I think McDaniels will utilize Gibson more as a receiver than Van Pelt did. That was one of the more dumbfounding things I thought from last year's offense, is that they hardly ever used Gibson as a receiver. I thought that was awful. So I do think put Gibson in more spots to have the opportunity to succeed. And a lot of that has to do with his receiving ability. So I think you could see 2 running back formations with Gibson playing a role. You also want to get him involved in the screen game. The issue for Gibson is his pass protection. And I think that's a big reason why the Patriots drafted Travion Henderson. You know it by now. I'm sure many of you have heard this already, but Henderson was the best, pass protection running back in the draft this past year. People will argue, pundits will tell you, analysts will tell you that Henderson is one of the best pass protecting backs that the draft has had in the last few years. And a big problem with Gibson, and a part of the problem why he didn't play as much, was that, pass protection was iffy. He would get confused. He blew a couple of blocks. So with that question about Gibson's ability to pass protect, to pick up the blitz, if you're not picking up the blitz, you're not going to be out there on third down because you're just leaving Drake Maye open to unnecessary hits. But I think early downs, you could see Gibson whenever Ramondre needs a little bit of a breather or Henderson needs a little bit of a breather. He is certainly going to be the 3rd running back on this roster if he makes it. All right, show_1. Nick, in my opinion, the Patriots have not solved the issue at left guard. Do you think they make a trade or pick up a veteran who has been cut? Veteran cuts are always a possibility. You have to question whether or not a team is going to release anybody who's worthwhile. Offensive linemen are tough to find. Interior offensive linemen, their role within the game and their importance within the game continues to grow as interior defensive linemen get better at pass rushing. So I don't know if anybody's going to be released that you say, oh, that guy is an immediate upgrade over what the Patriots have. I don't know if that person's going to exist. Same idea with the trade. Is a team going to be willing to trade a left guard who is better than what you have right now? I'm not sure. I would say probably not, but I could be wrong. Maybe somebody does get cut. Maybe somebody is on the trading block before the season kicks off, and you say, we think that guy can be better than what we have. We think he can be better than what he's been at the place where he's at right now. Let's make a trade. Let's bring him in. But I don't think that's likely because just offensive linemen are so tough. They're so tough to find. It sounds like Cole Strange and Wes Schweitzer right now are at the top of the depth chart, but it's early June. That can change. Tyrese Robinson had a little bit of a flash. OTA practice number 2 in front of the media, but he was out on Monday. So is he now out of the mix? When he comes back from whatever's going on, is he right back in the mix? But it sounds like it was Strange and Schweitzer for practice 1 and practice 3 for the most part. But they have plenty of time to figure it out. They've got plenty of options. I am not super confident they'll get much above average play from that spot, but you don't need much above average play at left guard if your center and left tackle are dealing with their business. But I've said this multiple times. The offensive line has some questions. They've upgraded. I think they'll be better than last year. They should be decently better than last year, but that offensive line is not without question. And that's at most of the spots. We'll see. City So, does he get back involved? But if you ask me right now, are you super confident or comfortable with what they have at left guard? I would say not yet, unless they get better play from center and left tackle, and then you could survive with average play. I do think they can get average play from one of these guys. But would I bet my house on it? No, I would not. You certainly hope somebody pops, so to speak. All right, don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to subscribe. Those three things help us out with this podcast, especially the likes and the comments. I appreciate every single one of you. We will be back on Friday at 3. Don't forget to check out Locked On Patriots as well. I appreciate every single one of you. Enjoy the rest of your hump day.